As much as I love technology, I never thought that I would be incorporating it into our bathroom. However, today we're gonna show you how we took this bathroom from the studs to the finish and incorporated some really cool smart home features, such as our smart shower with digitally controlled shower valve, which terrifies me, our fancy Japanese toilet, and our Wi-Fi controlled heated floor. However, not everything went to plan and we were able to adapt and overcome, just like you always should, but ultimately you get to be the judge of whether or not smart home belongs in the bathroom. Let's get started. This is already a pretty small bathroom, so in order to make it feel as open as possible, we're gonna be doing a curbless shower. That means no shower curb right here, which means in order to do that, we need to set the pan down below the floor level so we can get our proper drainage. Now to do that, I need to cut out and remove the existing subfloor, and then I'll put some supports on the sides of the joist and lower the floor so that it is flush with the joist. That's gonna give us about an extra inch, actually an inch and a quarter probably, because of the existing flooring and subfloor that's on there. And that will be enough to get us our shower pan. The drain is at the back here. Hopefully we'll have a linear drain across there, a bench across here, and then we'll have body sprayers, a handheld, and a rain shower head. Now, we ran the plumbing above the ceiling because actually our roof is going to be insulated, giving us that conditioned attic space that we needed to keep that plumbing from freezing, obviously. Now, the issue that I had was as you come into the shower, obviously we'll probably have glass right here across the front, but as you come into the shower, normally you would need to adjust the shower setting or turn the shower on. So you'd have to open this door and you'd have to reach across here and turn the shower on, and then what happens? The rain shower head dumps right on top of your head. So I was trying to come up with a solution for that problem, and obviously these two walls are gonna be exterior walls, so I can't run any plumbing there. So what I did was I came up with the solution, which I'm not 100% sold on yet, but I've got an electronic shower valve. So this is a cable that runs down to my mechanical room, and all of these lines you can see right here, each of these lines have dedicated lines that go down to the mechanical room and attach to that shower valve. This wire through that controller will send a signal to that valve and tell it to turn on whichever zone we want and bring it up to whatever temperature we want. That all sounds really cool, and it is, as long as it works. It's an electronic device, so hopefully everything will work out and this will work as intended. All right, so today, before the spray foam insulators come, I have realized one thing with the shower that I want to fix. As you can see, I've got a laser level down here, and up at the top plate, that laser is right on the edge of the top plate. The problem is down at the bottom, we are about 1.5 inches out from the wall. So in order to make sure that my tile is nice and plumb, I want to be able to rebuild this wall out at the bottom, so making sure that the studs are nice and plumb. That way our tile in the corner looks nice and sharp when it's done. So it's about 1.5 inches out on the bottom, so I used a 2x4 on its side to fur that bottom plate out, and then I nailed my studs to that. We've got one in the corner and then spaced 16 inches on center, and I actually cut or ripped a strip for this corner over here, but basically that gets us now a nice plumb wall for our tile to go onto. We went ahead and actually installed this drain when we did our plumbing. Just kind of got this set as we were connecting all the plumbing, because we actually don't have access to the plumbing from below. We got a finished ceiling below us. That's why this drain is already in. Now the next step of the process, I believe, is to install this bench. So my glass is gonna go basically right where that joint is, but I want my bench to run a little bit past it. So we're gonna make this bench 35 inches. So I've got a finished side over here. The back of this is actually just constructed out of like foam board, so it won't deteriorate or anything like that. 35 inches is right here. So I'm gonna cut some of this side off of this bench and then we'll thin set it in place. The nice thing is this thing has lines on it, so you kinda know where to cut. Back in the shower. And this will go in there like that. Now obviously, I'm gonna need to cut a little notch out of the bottom to be able to set that in there. I'm gonna start by trying to put thin set all over this thing. And I think I've determined actually I might not need this piece. This is actually still very solid in there. I need something to wedge. Like some kind of shim or something. I got you, Jim. You're gonna have the shower of your dreams when I'm done. So again, nothing about this house is level, even though I poured self-leveler beforehand. I did my best to what they call wet shim this bench, which is essentially just putting a bunch of thin set underneath of it and getting it to where you want. Let the thin set cure. That is level. That has pitch. Front edge is level. And we got plenty of pitch on the seat itself. I have made an absolute mess, and I'm not ashamed, in hopes that this seat will not go anywhere. And then I am not going to touch it until it cures. What a mess I've made. As I was setting the drain, we came across an issue, and the issue is the entire house slopes away from the drain. So once I was able to get the pitch and my shower pan all set in, I realized that the curbless shower was not gonna happen. Now luckily the floors are fairly close, but I did ultimately have to build a curb, and I did so by using 2x4s and then wrap those with Curdy board to isolate the tile from the expansion and contraction of the wood itself. And then I came into the shower pan. I was able to cut down the pan and install the pan, and this is where I screwed up. And if I don't talk about my mistakes, then for one, somebody's gonna point them out in the comments. You guys are gonna call me hack, and nobody's gonna learn. So the mistake that I made was I used the wrong size trowel. I was kind of in a hurry. I was just trying to get it done, and I haven't done it in a while. I kind of knew that the trowel was too small, but I went ahead anyway. I looked it up and it said 1/4 by 3/8, and I confused that with 1/4 by 3/16. Anyway, I knew that that was the case, or I kind of had an idea that that wasn't gonna be thick enough in the back of my head, and I should have listened to that. However, I did put on the mortar, or the thin set, extra thick. So luckily I came back today and the shower pan is firmly installed. So I don't think we're gonna have an issue. I even back buttered the shower pan itself before installing it. So I think we've got a good enough bond. Now the next mistake that I made was I installed this, the Curdy band. And what that does is it seals the shower pan to the walls. Now, part one of that mistake is that I really should have installed these corners first. And the reason being is that you really only need 2 inches of overlap. So if you install these corners first, you can lay your Curdy band right up to here and here. That way the Curdy band doesn't overlap in the corner itself. So right now I've got, right here in this corner, there's 2 layers of Kerdi band, and then I'm gonna put a 3rd layer in this corner over top. Now, this isn't the end of the world, but, and it will be fully waterproof once I'm done, but the problem is that you get buildup in the corners, and that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to install tile nice and flat and evenly. Part 2 of that mistake was that while I was installing this, especially this Kerdi band up here on the bench, essentially I just had enough thin set to do the job and I didn't want to waste thin set, so I just started going. I was standing right here a lot. I was putting a lot of my weight right here, and actually what this resulted in is this part of this pan kind of depressed a little bit, and I've got this little well here where I know that the water is gonna run down here and it's gonna hit this lip, and there's gonna be some water sitting in here. So my goal for today is to install the rest of the Kerdi band in the corners, on the seams, and cover up all of these. And then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna install these corners, and I'm also gonna take a little piece of the Kerdi membrane and just try and fill this little swale in, just so that I can get all of that water to roll off and into the drain. That's the goal. You don't really want any water sitting in the shower pan, because just over time, even if it's, you know, most of the water is going to run off the tile, but the water that gets into the thin set could sit there and just cause degradation over time, and we don't really want that. That's where I'm at. These are mistakes. These things happen, and one thing I have learned is that take the time to review the instructions, especially when you haven't done something like this in a while. That's about it. All right, so our thin set has fully cured. It's been about 48 hours since we finished up the pan. And now for the moment of truth, we've got to do a water test. So essentially I've got this little stopper, and this is like a compression thing that'll go inside the linear drain. One thing I had to do is I had to modify this a little bit and kind of file down the sides so that it would fit in here. That will seal up that drain, hopefully. Then we just add water and hope for the best. Now, in order to properly perform this test, the water, or according to our codes, it actually has to be 2 inches above the drain. So I'm gonna need to add a couple more buckets of water, and then this is supposed to sit for 24 hours and see if it drops in level. We'll mark where the water line is, and we'll call the inspector out to do the inspection on the pan. Okay, we're at 2 inches, so I'm going to take a pencil, I'm gonna mark this water line, and we'll let this sit, and hopefully it will hold water. That's the idea. Now, the next thing that you'll probably notice is this stuff right here. This is the Detra Heat. This is the peel and stick. Now, I've put Detra and Detra Heat down before with a thin set mortar like you typically would. This is the first time that I have done peel and stick, and it is way easier. We did put the primer down before we peeled and sticked this stuff, but just not having to deal with mortar is obviously way cleaner and way easier to put down. Well, first I'm gonna be installing the heat cable. This is the heat cable. Once we get this cable installed, I'll start installing the Kerdi corners and the band around the front of this curb and along the walls. That'll just waterproof around the edge or perimeter of this room. I won't be able to completely seal it off because obviously we've got a doorway, but it'll keep water from anything that does get out of the shower. It'll keep it from getting back underneath of this floor and into this curb especially. But since I've got a little extra banding, Might as well just seal up as much as possible since this is a second floor bathroom. Now, one thing I did do during the rough-in, because we knew we were gonna be putting in-floor heat in here, was I have my box for my control unit, and then I have conduit in the wall. That is, I just put a wire in here, just a pull wire so that I could get all of this up. So I got my heat cable wire, and then I've got 2 temperature sensors. This is just redundancy, just in case one goes down, I believe is the case. But they both have to be installed. So now we're just gonna try and get all of this wiring up through this conduit. All right, we got our wire fished through the wall. Now it is time to install the heat cable in the floor. Okay, so we had our shower pan inspection. The inspector came by. This water's been in this pan for 24 hours and the level has not dropped. We just marked the level of water with a pencil on the wall, and now we can pull the plug, drain this bad boy. So today is tile day, and I'm gonna try something that I've never done before, which is installing large format tile. This is a 16 by 48 inch long tile. Now, luckily, my first row, I'm gonna be cutting those in half because 2 full tiles don't quite make it all the way up to the ceiling. That being said, the thin set that you wanna use is a specifically generated for large format and heavy tiles. That's gonna go on the back wall, just the back wall. We've got 4x4 tiles that are gonna go on these side walls. And then for the floor, the shower floor, we're gonna be using this sliced, honed marble tile, pebble tile. Typically, you would put shower floor down first. However, we've got a linear drain across the back, and this wall tile is gonna go all the way down to the floor or the shower pan, and then there will be a drain in front of it. So I'm gonna put this tile down first. That way on the edges, I'll be able to lay my floor tile into that, and then we'll do the rest of the wall tile, the sides anyway, after this floor gets in. I've kind of already done a rough layout and went ahead and cut these tiles. I know where my center is, and that tile's roughly gotta go there. Since these tiles are so big, I gotta use, and let's start. I'm gonna double check to make sure I got good coverage. That, in my opinion, does not look like great coverage. So, but I'm almost thinking that I'm gonna need to trowel the wall and then trowel on the tile too. So, and I'm sure somebody's gonna tell me I'm doing this wrong, but I'm okay with that. There's something about, I've heard both people say, or multiple people say, it doesn't matter which way you trowel, but it makes good sense that you would want to trowel in the direction of the shortest line, right? So when you push the tile against the wall, you've got all these ridges and you want the air to get out, right? So if you go across the tile instead of long ways like I just did, the air should be able to get out easier. Now I've got to juggle this. Maybe I gotta go up and down with it. Oh yeah, that feels better. Holy smokes. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so set it against the wall. And you really gotta go up and down. I think that's the ticket. Oh boy, it's a learning process, folks. We got the back wall done, and I actually just went ahead and grouted it because we used a brown grout for that to kind of color match it and make those grout joints disappear as much as possible. And I really didn't want to be dropping that grout onto our honed marble tile. So got that grouted, and now we're gonna go ahead and lay this, just a little V-notch trowel, and then we'll be pressing it down with the grout float just to kind of embed those in that thin set. I've got a white thin set. Hopefully my goal today is to get this done and this floor done, let that cure overnight, then we can come back, grout that, and then we'll be ready to kind of do our walls. Used epoxy grout. However, I wanted to use it on this shower floor in particular because, for one, there's a lot of grout here in between all of these little pebble tiles, and it's white on white. So we don't have perfect water out here, which means that there could be some staining if the filters aren't working just right. And I wanted to make sure that that was not an issue with this grout in particular. Jamie already went ahead and sealed all of this marble tile so that this does not stain it. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I've seen shower floors before where the grout, if there's any water, if the water just sits for too long, it could cause your grout and your floor to stain, and you'll see like the dark lines where the water sat for a little bit too long around this drain. Obviously these tiles are not straight. There's a lot of ins and outs. That's the other thing with these pebble tiles is even as you try to lay them, some of these tiles were actually a little bit thinner than the other ones. So like this one right here is lower than this one. So it brings me back to my staining point. That's done. Now we just need to let it set up for a little bit, and then we can come back and start wiping things down. The key is with grout, basically you want it to, so like my middle finger, use that one. When you touch the grout, you don't want it to pull any of the grout out of the joint. So that's when you'll know that it's ready to start wiping down. So we'll let this set up a little bit. Okay, so it's been, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes and it doesn't seem to be pulling up. So we're gonna go ahead and try this first wash. So I'm just gonna get a wet sponge, I'm gonna wring it out and just see if I can, and also just kind of tooling it, smoothing it into the joints, getting the joints nice and smooth. So this is just like a white, almost like a Brillo pad. It's like a finishing pad. It's got a little bit of grit to it. I'm hoping this will clean some of that grout off of those more stubborn spots. It's definitely tougher than I expected. All right, so this is my next project, or the final floor tile that needs to go down. Actually goes on the tileable insert. This is an insert that goes inside of that linear drain, and this receives tiles so that all you see are the lines around it. Now, I already went ahead and cut this tile down out on the wet saw, and I had a nice little system going where I was able to use some of the Curdy board left over, and then I kind of marked my lines so I knew exactly how to repeatedly cut this 2 inches wide. And we kind of just stitched it all together so that I think this is gonna work out really well. This is a sealant as well as an adhesive. So it's basically like a souped up construction adhesive for bathrooms. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by applying this to this insert, and then I made a little disposable trowel. We'll trowel it on, and then whatever little pieces we need to kind of fit in place, we'll do that, so. The tileable insert is now tiled. While I don't know that this is necessarily the best job for a guy with big shaky hands, we got it done. We'll let this Curdy Fix set up, and then we will grout this, and the shower floor will be done, and we'll move on to the walls. So it's time to set my threshold. I've got this threshold that I've cut down to size. I made the mistake of not looking at what common thresholds were when I built this curb. I just kind of built it how I would want it, and that is not the way to do it. Because these thresholds, they come in 4 inches wide and 6 inches wide, and I needed a 5-inch threshold. So off camera, I actually had to cut down the threshold that I got. I just ripped it down and polished the edges so that it would work for what we're doing. I'm gonna be using a big trowel for this, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so the reason I troweled that mortar on as thick as it is, it's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch trowel, is because this actually has to go in here, and we want to get it in place. Now, when I built my curb, I put it on a little bit of an angle, but this has to be level. That's not gonna work. But this needs to be level across, and then it has to be pitched that way. So we just want any water that gets on there to drain back into the shower. Pitch. Okay, that looks good. All right, so I'm gonna try something I haven't tried before. I've got my level line. This is gonna be my first row of tile. It's gotta get cut to match that line all the way around. But for the corner tile, rather than using some sort of trim edge, I'm actually gonna try mitering the tiles. I just think that'll give it a nice look, and hopefully not have to use that edge. So first one, of course, is gonna be a little tricky. All right, I guess we'll start by cutting this one to fit my level line. So that's a little trick. In order to get your tile level, even if it's on a slant, you just flip it over, mark the back with your level line, and then you cut that off, and then should be nice and level. All right, so I'm not gonna lie, this took me a couple times, but of course the most complicated cut is on the first one. Yeah, I think that'll look good. I'll put a little grout in there, and I managed to get the tile all set and grouted. Everything looks great. I even went ahead and put a first coat of paint on the walls. And the reason I did that is because once I get this vanity in here, it's gonna be a little bit tough to kind of paint back in that corner behind the vanity. So I'm gonna try and get this vanity set now. I got the plumbing is coming up through the floor, so I'm gonna have to kind of mark on this vanity where that plumbing is, and then drill some holes and kind of try and set this thing down on there. All right, I think I'm gonna need to cut those water lines before I get too much further. Okay, so I got the sink in and I went ahead and kind of just somewhat installed these faucets. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is install this drain, and for that I'm just gonna lay a bead of DAP's amp. This is basically silicone. However, it's got a couple of unique features, which I actually use this along that tile edge because it's silicone, which is great for waterproofing and whatnot. But this DAP amp, this is modified so that you can actually paint over it. So being able to kind of paint over this clear into that edge gave us a great look. But like I said, we'll just put a nice thick bead of this along the inside of this guy, and then we'll set that, and that will completely seal up the inside of this drain. I'm gonna change gears a little bit and switch over to some window trim. I went ahead and made up my jam extension, or my window jams, I guess. And now I've just got to get these installed, but don't worry, I've got an entire video on how to make these, and it's actually not that hard, so. Heavy on the spray foam. Oh, come on. All right, I think this stuff that was really hard for me because I am possibly one of the more impatient people with spray foam all over my hand. I told ya. Okay, first things first is this water line right here. I've got to clean this up and attach this guy, which I've already assembled. This is just a this is a shark bite fitting, and then this is their T adapter. This comes with the toilet. That way you can have one water line for the bidet and one for the tank. I'm gonna clean this up with a little bit of sandpaper. Water bucket. Obviously my water is turned off. I do have a diamond tipped hole saw. This is just a tiny little hole saw that I'm gonna be using just to drill through the tile for these anchors. And then obviously our subfloor will be what we secure these points to, so. Okay, so now leg bolts, let's just see. I don't want to tighten these up too tight because I don't want to crack my tile. This toilet flange actually came with a test cap in it, so I'm gonna go grab a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, see if we can't get that cap out of there. All right. Oh, this thing is not light. So we got a power cord and two water lines coming out the back. So I need to put this wax ring on the bottom of this thing. Now, let's see how don't grab it. Okay, so these little plugs go inside just to protect these screws. Actually go through the side and are supposed to go in that thing, the mounting blocks. There's a bunch of holes in there, so we just gotta find one. Got my water back on, so I'm gonna turn this on, see if we got any leaks. Everything looks good right now. Let's try this again. Got a little button down here at the bottom that you can use to close or open the lid. So you're standing here, which is pretty sweet. And it auto flushes. So that just flushed itself. After I closed the lid, it flushed itself. I like it. Smart toilet for the win. Now I don't know why, but this has been making me very nervous. I've got these body sprayers now. I'm gonna attempt to go ahead and put those in. Wish me luck. I've read through these instructions like, I don't know, 15 times. And maybe just because I've never done this before. Let's see if we can't figure this out. Whoa, well that's good. It's holding pressure at least. Now I've got to figure out how to get this guy out of there. All right, there is my rough end cover. What I'm gonna do first, because I didn't put in the Curdy ring, I think is what it's called. I don't know what it's called actually. But I didn't put in anything to seal up my drywall. So I've got some Curdy fixed, and I'm just gonna go around and apply a bead of this all around here just to kind of seal things up. Now this is just gonna protect my drywall and just act as like a dam for the water. Any water that does get back there. All right, I put this guy in. Now it doesn't say anything about pipe threads on there, which is weird to me. That's why there's no pipe threads, because this actually has a little O-ring that's gonna go inside of that. I need to flush the system before I install the finish. That's just gonna get any debris out. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna finish installing the other two, and I might just go ahead and install all the fixtures so I can flush them all at once. The whole shower is actually controlled by this guy. So this is Moen's smart shower system. And the reason I did this was because this is an exterior wall. This is where I wanted my diverter to go, but I can't put it on the exterior wall, especially since these are only 2x4 walls. So I used a electronic diverter, which actually the valve is down below in the utility room, but I need to plug this in, and then this, you'll be able to set temperature and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. So we've got a wire running from here all the way down to the mechanical room where the valve is, which is not very far. It's actually just below us. So as far as heating up the water and whatnot, shouldn't be an issue. I'm gonna plug this in and turn those on in an effort to flush the water out of them and any debris that might be in there. There they come. Uh-oh, water's going everywhere. Okay, now the bottom one was the one shooting out most of the water, which is obvious, the path of least resistance. So I'll go ahead and plug that one in and work my way up, flushing each one so that hopefully we can get any particles out of there. It's got a little grease that I'm supposed to put on this O-ring. Okay, it should be all flushed out. This really wasn't that bad. I think sometimes some of these things just make me nervous because I've never done it before, but if you read the instructions enough time, usually there's not that much to it. Final test. Nice. Okay, now we gotta mount the shower head and the shower wand and this remote to the wall. Had a little moment of panic yesterday as I was putting this in. As I was installing it, the screen went blank and like off. Anyway, now it's working. I was able to, I ended up pulling the bracket off. I had to do a hard reset on the valve, which is just unplugging it for 5 minutes. And then when I plugged it back in, it came on. And I was very happy because there was all these thoughts that were running through my head as far as like tearing out this tile, figuring out if the cable was damaged somewhere, and if I needed to, I don't know, somehow fix or repair the cable. I had no idea how I was going to do that, which was my main worry with this device from the very start, was that cable. One thing that I wish that I would have done, and I recommend if you're putting this in, is to run conduit. I really wish that I would have ran conduit that way. If we ever needed to upgrade the system or something went wrong or something happened and we needed to replace that cable, we could pull a new cable through that conduit. However, I didn't do that, so we're stuck with this, and hopefully this will work out, or at least we can find something that will work with the same cable that we have in the wall. So we're all set here. Last things we need to do is the rain shower head and the handheld. I've also got the guy coming out today to measure for the custom glass that's gonna go in here, so pretty excited, we're coming along. Okay, so for the rain shower head, for these like any kind of MPT fitting, what I like to do is use a high quality tape. I wrap my pipe with tape. We do, I don't know, 4 or 5 loops. So I'm gonna wrap the end of this with this plumbing tape. And then what I use is this is called, I call it pipe dope, but it's thread sealant. So it's just an extra step because the tape doesn't always hold by itself, but this will make sure that we get a good seal. So you tape and then you dope. Okay, and I should probably flush that out, which might end up clogging up my screen, but worst case, just pull this off. This has got a little screen right in here and we can clean that screen out if we're noticing a reduced flow. Now this doesn't have to be taped because it's got a rubber gasket on there. I am gonna put a little wrench on it because I wasn't able to. Just use a towel to protect your pipe. Turns to, should be good. Test the shower head. Good. Okay, I like it. Now for the shower wand. Okay, now I've got an assortment of pipe nipples because I didn't know how far back I was gonna need to go, and I think about 2.5. I think we're gonna have to kind of load this one up because it's close to the edge. The other thing is this thing that I have here, the seal, I think it's intended for a 3/4 inch pipe, so it's not tight around this brass pipe nipple. So I'm gonna do a few more wraps on this just so we can get it out further. So I'm just gonna load this up with sealant around. Now this hose goes on here, and there's a screen in there. Theoretically, we just need to tighten this down. Now we can flush this out. Not really gonna help it. Oh shit. When you turn the shower on, the rain shower head automatically comes on, and it just doused me, so. Now I'm gonna clear all of this out and turn everything on and just check for leaks from around the top of the shower head and around this guy. If there's one in the wall, I don't know how you figure that out until it starts coming through the drywall below. So hopefully that's tightened down enough and got everything on it so that we got a good seal, but should be good. Now we just need to mount the rail for the wand to set on, but we're getting closer. The bathroom is now complete, and I love the way that it turned out, from the vanity to the smart toilet, the smart shower with all the different things. Except there's one last thing that we've got to do. We've actually got to install some custom glass that's going to be going in this shower, and we're going to do that now. That was easy, and the glass turned out great. We've got the door swings in or out this way, but overall, I couldn't be happier with this bathroom. Honestly, the backlit mirror, the lighted mirror turned out really cool, and it just kind of makes it a little bit more sleeker in here, as well as the smart toilet. This is like one of my favorite things. It has the auto flush feature, heated seat, bidet, all that jazz, as well as the built-in nightlight. And then obviously we've got the heated floor, as well as the smart shower. We've got the body sprayers, the rain shower head, and the handheld. Overall, for such a small footprint, this bathroom has got all the bells and whistles, in my opinion. So let me know in the comments, would you do all of these things? Do you like the features that we have in the shower bathroom area? And if there was something that you would have done differently, let us know there too. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, be safe and happy building.